Guys, it's always good to be talking to you. What I'm doing is I'm just doing a little learning cast on the Consumer's Price Index, just to tidy up a few loose ends from the other day. All right, so let's go for that conceptual insight. So look, Stats New Zealand, through running what's called the Household Expenditure Survey, determine what goods and services the typical household buys. So what we can do is we can talk about our basket of goods and services. All right, so here's our basket. Well, it's a box really, but we'll just forget about that. There's one good, and there are two of another kind of good. All right. So can we put some prices in there? Yeah, make that $5. Make these ones $10 each. Oops. Okay. All right. Right. So what we can do is we can work out how much it's going to cost you to buy this box of goods and services. So what I'm basically going to ask you to do is I'm going to ask you to work out the expenditure, aren't I, at T1. We'll assume this is time 1. Right, so what we can do is we can get into a little formula that looks like this: P times Q. That's B for one product, and P times Q. And what we can do is we can sum up those expenditures, can't we? So can we go and do that? Oh, yeah. So we've got $5 for the square product, and we've only got one of those. Plus, we've got $10 for the triangles, and we've got two of them. So that's going to be $5 in total. That's going to be 20. And if your maths is as good as mine, that's going to be $25. That's the expenditure, isn't it? On that box at T1. You happy with that? Yeah, I would be. Okay, so what we're going to do now is that we're going to advance to time 2. So here's our box. Oh, I should really dress it up as a basket, but we haven't got time. So there it is. There's that square product. There are the two triangle products. Now, with the passage of time, what we normally expect is that we normally expect prices to go up and down. I'm going to just show these prices as having gone up. So that's now going to be $7. And that's now going to be $12 there, say, and $12 there, because they're one and the same product, just two of them. Right, yes, I'm going to ask you to calculate the expenditure. Oops, spelling. The expenditure at T2. So what have we got there? So it'll be price times quantity for one product plus price times quantity for the other product. So let's just crunch the numbers. So we've got 7 times 1 plus 12 times 2. So that's going to be 7, and it's going to be 24, and so that expenditure is going to be 31. How about that? Is that good? Okay. Now, what are we going to do with these expenditures? Now, look, just before we go on, I just want to point out something to you. When we calculate these expenditures, notice that we're allowing the price of the products to change. The one thing that is constant is the quantity of the two goods that are in our basket or box. That's not changing, is it? We've got one of the square ones in time 1, and we've got one of the square ones at time 2. We've got two of the triangular ones at time 1 and two of the triangular ones at time 2. So we're holding the quantities constant while allowing the prices to vary. And that's what we want to have happen, because inflation is trying to determine whether prices have been changing in a sustained way, whether prices overall have been increasing or whether prices overall have been decreasing. And that's what that allows us to do. All right, well, let's just shrink this down and put it up over here. All right, okay, so let's just come back to this. Now, what we can do is we can work out the Consumer's Price Index for the base period. So what I'm going to assume that just change colour. I'm going to assume that T1 is the base period. That's our reference point. So I'm going to write out my little formula for calculating the CPI. So I'm going to go the expenditure at T1 over the expenditure at T1 times 1,000. So you know what the answer is going to be, don't you? So that'll be 1 times 1,000 equals 1,000. So always remember the CPI index, the consumer price index, always has a value of 1,000 in the base period. And that's just a definitional thing, because we put the expenditure at time 1 over the expenditure of time 1, just to get us underway. Alright, so can I park that? I'll give it a go. Yeah, we can. Just put that over here. Alright. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to calculate the CPI value, or the Consumer's Price Index value, for T2. So what's the formula going to be? Well, hopefully you're going to go this. You're going to go CPI T2, and you're going to go the expenditure in T2, so we're going to just put that here for the sake of completeness. Expenditure T2 over the expenditure T1. So you remember what they were? Let's just have a little looky here. Oops, let's have a little looky. Remember, yes, 25 and 31 agreed. Alright, so I'll just put that back up here. Okay, right. So expenditure at T2 is 31, 25. Right, can you get out your calculators? I've got to grab my mobile phone. I'll just do the calculation. Oh, remember we've got to multiply that by 1,000 to dress it up. That's all we're doing, just multiplying by 1,000. So what we've got here, 31 divided by 25, and that's going to give us a value of 1.24, which we times by 1,000, and so that's going to be 1240. So that's the Consumer's Price Index. That's the CPI value by time period 2. So can we work out the rate of inflation? Well, look, yes we can. I just need a bit more room, so what I'm going to do is just shrink this down a bit more. Alright, so we want the formula for inflation, don't we? Inflation. Alright, so what have we got here? What's it going to be like? Okay, so what we want is we want the CPI value for T2, and we want the CPI value for T1. This is going to give us the change in the CPI index. Well, this is going to give us the change in CPI, I should say. If you say CPI index, you're saying index twice, aren't you? CPI index. Alright. So where did prices start? They started with the CPI value at T1. To dress this one up, we don't multiply by 1,000, we multiply by 100. Alright, so just putting in all the values which we have worked out. So we don't really need a calculator for this one, do we? So that's 240 over 1,000. Remember, we're going to multiply it by 100. So what's that going to be? Times 100 there, it's good. It'll be 0.24 times 100. And hopefully you've agreed that the rate of inflation is 24%. That's the rate of inflation between T1 and T2. So, just creating some space and putting that one here. So what does all this mean? We need to put it into words, don't we? Okay, so what are we going to say? Okay, so I'm going to write this. Okay, I'll try and do it in my best handwriting. So, in other words, always a good opening expression. If the rather than say box, I say basket. It's a nicer word. If the basket cost you $100 at time period 1, then it's going to cost you $124. $124 at T2. We can say, i.e., it's going to cost you 24% more. How's that? That's pretty good. It's just 10 minutes and 10 seconds. I reckon that's pretty good. Well, look, I'm gonna leave it there. Okay, catch you.